The divine feminine is the carrier of deep sacred wisdom that blesses the collective with nurturance, softness, grace, unconditional love, but also unbridled, raw truth that can cut as sharp as a sword, leading to the exposure of masculine imbalances and egoic distortions. The feminine is just one half of the picture, not more powerful or more significant than the masculine counterpart, but very unique in its style and approach to breeding more expansion. In order to understand the divine feminine, we need not think or analyze this energy, because it actually can't be logically understood. The unfathomable aspect of the divine feminine is that in order to touch it and to assimilate its deep wisdom, we need to allow ourselves to become it by choosing to be a feeler and gracefully inviting in this divine feminine awareness, which permeates our ego and leads us closer to the source of the Divine Mother's truth. To understand the divine feminine, I encourage you to open your heart and allow even these words that I'm currently sharing to penetrate beneath the resistance, behind the logo-centered aspect of your mind's desire to comprehend everything through an evidence-backed experience. Because the divine feminine is something that cannot be proven. It is something that needs to be experienced through deep awareness that this polarity exists within your own soul, and only by allowing yourself to feel can you understand the wisdom that it holds. To drop into the state of resonating with the Divine Mother's expression, we need to see that even within this one polarity of the two, we experience two individual poles. There's a light and a dark aspect to the Divine Feminine, just like anything has these two chief polarities. The light aspect of the Divine Feminine is that quintessential soft, graceful, nurturing, loving, accepting, and warm expression, which is usually associated with the love that a mother provides her child, or the softness that a woman can give to man, or the expression of receptivity, which is experienced in every expression of nature and the universe's giving of itself to another aspect through the receptive counterbalance of energy. The feminine is a space, like the cosmic womb, that allows for information, energy, and both material and immaterial matter to find a socket in this cosmic equation. The feminine allows for deeper understanding and wisdom to be achieved, because by holding space for that experience, it ultimately allows for expansion. Just like the womb of every mother that is allowing for life to form within it, the divine feminine energy takes within it this deep meaning, and via the processing of energy, it allows for deeper wisdom to be born. For this reason, all of us need to be in contact with the divine feminine expression within us in order to come to a deep understanding of why it is that we experience what we do in life. Because this outlet through which we communicate energetic understanding is contacted only through acceptance of the divine feminine. If any man or woman does not want to comprehend the deeper intuition beneath their decision-making process, or the understanding of why certain things occur to them in their lives by looking into the subtle meaning of the emotional experience that it precipitates, they are going to be actually defying the purpose of expansion, simply due to their inability to come into resonance with the feminine's wisdom. This feminine awareness can be contacted by moving into our heart space and choosing to recognize that the solutions we are seeking and the deep wisdom and clarity we're looking for can be found in these soft whispers of truth. This truth does not come through a rigid knocking at the door of logic and trying to comprehend why it is that certain things happen that emerge from an ethereal space of knowing. Rather, we achieve this understanding by coming into a space of acceptance, which is precisely the energy of us choosing to surrender to the Divine Mother. So in order to comprehend what the Divine Feminine wants to communicate through us, we need to first open up our faculty of this awareness, which means that any feeling that you are receiving, whether that is an intuitive hit, or some kind of an idea that enters your field, or a deep gut knowing, or perhaps even an intuition about something that is bound to happen in the future, if you do not acknowledge these feelings, what you're doing is effectively suppressing the divine feminine potentiality within you. You're choosing to, rather than explore these feminine sensations, go into a mode of utter resistance, suppression, which is essentially building up walls of masculine tension rather than allowing for soft movement into the feminine space of awareness. Many men feel terrified to move into a more divine feminine-oriented experience because that resembles the abandonment of their masculine intuition. To them, that is an experience that is highly unpredictable, risky, not calculated based on logo-centered reasoning and past predictability. When moving into a divine feminine experience, you may feel at a loss for control. You may feel that you are surrendering to something that is outside of you, which can feel like losing the grip of your own ego in order to submit to some higher universal knowing. And this is precisely why divine feminine expansion is so critical to the ascension process. If we think of ascension not just as a process of moving outside of ourselves into some higher dimensional place of knowing, but rather as a process of more deeply integrating into ourselves the wisdom of every part in our field of consciousness, meaning each polarity, every aspect of our awareness, the subtle layers of the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual truths, we're going to start to see where we are actually fragmenting from within. And if we keep going into that mode of exploring the source of our fragmentation, very often what we find is the essence of it is a retaliation against feminine wisdom. That feminine wisdom could have come in the form of a subtle feeling or a desire or a characteristic of the self that we've chosen to resist rather than to accept. And so the thing that's needed to heal that issue of fragmentation is actually coming into a feminine state of surrender and acceptance. So how do we, as a man or woman, integrate this feminine awareness? The first thing to consider is that both men and women need to understand that honoring the divine feminine is only part of the equation. Having this energy in check with the masculine counterpart means choosing to assume the role of both, the nurturer and the life-giving force that moves this energy into forward-moving action. The Shakti energy is often associated with the divine feminine, as that is that primal force within the self, the energy that allows for intention to become manifested action, or a feeling to become the subtle whisper that turns into a command for the self to explore the world. There's also another side to the divine feminine. This is the dark aspect, representative of Dark Mother, that Kali energy, the very sharp antidote to the warm and inviting feminine essence, which sometimes needs to be expressed in order to bring these energetic polarities into balance. The divine feminine is very raw truth presented through the emotional experience, because the feminine is in contact with the whole range of underlying factors that lead to imbalance. And so this dark feminine energy actually serves the purpose of eliciting justice and making balance achieved through sometimes a very raw and primal form. For example, this dark mother energy can present itself in the form of a woman having an emotional outpouring because she isn't experiencing a safe space in a relationship. She might be experiencing total contraction of her feminine desire to expand and to feel invited into an experience of safety, vulnerability, and love, because she isn't feeling that unconditional love is an option in a certain environment. Now, it's innately the responsibility of every man and woman to cater to the needs of the divine feminine within them, meaning that when we are actually in touch with our own emotional depths, when we can feel what either provides us a feeling of justice, love, safety, and connection to ourselves and our reality, we can determine what factors and variables are allowing more of that experience or are protecting us from experiencing it. One of the telltale signs that we are not in connection to our divine feminine element is when we move into an energy of contraction. This can feel like being afraid to fully come into awareness of what we're feeling in the present moment because we're simply clashing with our environmental experience. This experience can be felt in a relationship with someone that is incompatible with us, who doesn't fully see us, acknowledge us, or allow us to be warm and inviting towards our authentic sense of self. The experience can also come up if we choose simply not to listen to our innermost needs, perhaps if we're not eating the right foods that our body is not enjoying, or we're simply not allowing ourselves to synthesize the deeper emotions and gut feelings that we have about certain situations or possibilities in the present moment or in our future. Whenever we choose to combat our feminine awareness, we move into this space of contracting so deeply that we end up becoming resistant to our own needs, to our own feelings, and that can lead to a very cold and oppressive condition of our feminine expression. In this case, the light aspect turns very dark and can end up feeling like vindictive, vengeful, and angry energy. This can be revealed in both men and women that choose to go into a very wounded feminine expression, either being defiant towards themselves and other people, choosing to resist any form of acceptance or love from others, choosing to fight vehemently through their emotional experience, which is wild, cathartic, and very angry at times. This experience feels like an emotional waterfall, which is hateful and full of so much pity towards the self, because without being in touch with our feminine center, we're always going to feel like the world is responsible for our issues, when in fact it is ourselves that is responsible for providing this experience for us. At the end of the day, in order to heal the divine feminine experience, we need to start to reclaim our responsibility for catering to the expansion of Divine Mother. If we think of the entire collective consciousness as an organism that is either allowing for more or less of this experience of feminine intuition and grace, we need to see how we're either contributing to this energetic exchange or defying it. And this brings us to understanding how we are either creating more of the light or the dark aspect within our own world. If we're choosing to invite in the divine feminine energy, we're going to choose creativity, kindness, self-compassion, grace, giving, and receiving through a loving connection to the self and the world. We're going to feel okay with softness, vulnerability, and openness to the emotional experience, because we're going to realize that this half is absolutely necessary for achieving a state of oneness. Unity consciousness can only be experienced when we allow ourselves to go deeply into the core of who we are, which is an authentic truth we are only able to contact if we're actually receptive of our own feminine nature. This feminine nature is something that unifies all of us, and we can find the empathy and love within our hearts to connect to every man and woman, to every animal, and to every aspect of nature and the world at large, if only we can be allowing of our own feminine expression. There is tremendous strength to be found in this receptivity, as not only does the forward-moving action of the masculine prove itself to be strong, the need to integrate and to come into a state of balance shows us that actually the surrendering to the feminine is the missing ingredient in many people's quest for wholeness. For we cannot achieve true joy and bliss without becoming more receptive of our own receptivity to life. Divine feminine awareness allows us to become a conduit for higher level truths that transcend our brain's finite potential to achieve self-actualization. For only the feelings can grant us the permission to really think outside the box, to explore higher dimensional possibilities, and to see why it is that the way that we feel is indeed the way that we feel. This awareness is something that cannot be studied unless we choose to fully drop down and experience ourselves as a connection to all of life. For the Divine Mother is actually achieving expansion through every single one of us, and through our depth and range of emotions, we can better understand what the universe is experiencing through us. And so choose to be this conduit. Choose to see that you can bring more love and unconditional acceptance through your own ability to hold space for yourself, which is the very first and last ingredient in the universal recipe for expansion.